So today's kit is scrap fabric weaving, and we've also sent you some wool and some wool roving or wool tops that you can weave with as well. For our scrap weaving, we need a piece of cardboard, a pencil, a ruler, a plastic needle, not essential but it can help. Then you need things to weave with, so you might want some wool, some fabric scraps, this is fluffy stuff, it's called wool roving or wool tops, it's kind of felting wool. And then you also might want to try some other fun materials. I'm going to try them up with this plastic bag today. Oh, and don't forget, you're going to need some scissors. And then we're ready to go. So we've sent you a weaving loom already strung up. I'm just going to show you how to string it if you want to make another one. If you want to thread up your own loom, you'll just need some wool or string and a bit of tape. So on the back of your loom, just tape down, put your wool into one of the grooves and then tape down the end like that, and then you go all the way around like this. I'm doing every 2 grooves, but you could do it every 1 if you wanted the gaps in between to be smaller. And then once you get to the end, cut that off and tape it at the other end as well. It doesn't matter too much how it's taped. Obviously one side will look wonky, one side will look straight. You want them to be quite tight, and then you should be ready to weave. So, we've sent you some wool, some fabric, some of this wool tops we call it here, or wool roving you can weave with and get really nice effects. If you're using fabric, what you want to do is you can snip and rip so you get long strands like this. And then you can start to weave. You can use your plastic needle, or you can also just do it with your fingers if you prefer. So we're just, the most basic one is going over and under. Leave your tail at the start quite long. And then just show you a few different weaving techniques. As you're weaving, try not to pull it too tight. Kind of, you want to keep the threads the same distance apart as you weave down it. It's quite tricky, but it's one of the important things to master when you're weaving. It's okay if it squishes a little bit, but try see what you can do to keep it in line. What you do want to do is squish it up this way though. So you're trying not to squish it sideways, but squish it up this way. When you've got your ends like this, you can just leave them because we can weave them in later. And you can weave with other things like this wool roving, which gets really nice effects. And I'm getting quite close to the end here, so what I'm going to do is add another fabric. And you could just start weaving with the fabric because these ends get woven in later, so you don't have to worry too much about the ends. But a good way to, if you want to have a flat bit of fabric added next. Ooh, I'm going to add the plastic bag. If you put one on top of the other, like this, do a little hole, so cut a little hole carefully through, like this. Then the one that's on the bottom is going to come through the top. And we're going to pull. Careful with the plastic bag so it doesn't rip. There we go. So now they're attached and it's quite flat. So you don't have to go all the way across with your colours. I might just come down a bit. Pull my loom a bit tighter at the back. I'm going to come across here with this blue and just make a little patch of blue. You could start to think about making a picture or something as well, if you wanted to. I'm just going to do some abstract shapes with this one. Now I'm going to start with some wool. Again, you can use your needle. I tend to cut it off. You don't want it too long. Depends how much you want to use, really. And then I'm going to start from this side, making sure I know what, so it's over here, so see it's under, so I'm going to go over here, under, and then actually I'm just going to weave slightly into this one that's blue, here, like that. I'm going to come back. And then again hide a little bit of this wool. So the kind of shapes that are here get connected. It doesn't kind of start to, you don't have a gap in the middle. So that's the most basic weave stitch, but feel free to play around with it as well. You might want to double your colours, so you've got 2 colours being woven at the same time, 3, however, whatever you want to do. You can also, I'm just going to cut this. Try not to pull it too tight so your loom gets too small. You want to kind of pull it tight enough so it stays secure, but not too tight that it starts to bend. You could start to play around with where you're going over and under as well. So you could go under 1, over 2, under 1. You don't have to stick to the traditional over-unders, if that makes sense. So then on my way back, I might go over these 2. So then we have kind of bigger flat pieces like that. Another stitch you can do with your weaving, just going to start it off, you can twist the thread or whatever your fabric, whatever you're weaving with, around the warp thread. So you kind of go under and then back around. So you're kind of coming under 2 and then you go back under 1, and you get a kind of twisted bobbly effect, which can look really nice. And I find it easier sometimes to do this with just my fingers. If you're finding the you might find it hard to do with the needle when it's fiddly like this, so I just do it with my fingers. Filled up my loom a bit more with a few more lines, and then I'm just going to do some tassels. And the way to make tassels, so you could wrap it around your hand, or you might want to wrap it around a bit more cardboard. It's good to use something so you get all your tassels the same length. So I'm going to wrap it round. You could count how many times you wrap it round so you know you get it the same each time. And then I'm going to cut. So you're going to work with 2 strands, pop it over the top, the tails come round like this, and then you kind of gently pull it against the string, like so. So you can see if they were at the bottom, they'd be like that, but I'm going to do mine kind of halfway up, like so. And then when you put the next row in, it'll be held in place. So you can do however many tassels you would like. I use the same bit of card, and you know your tassels are going to be the same length. Just pulled them down this way a little bit so then I can fill in the space underneath it. So as you can see, they've just got that underneath them to pull it tight, and then I'm just gonna pull them like this to tighten them up, and then trap them in the weave. So try and fill your loom as full as you can. Keep patting it down. And then at the back you can peel off your tape, and you're going to cut kind of in the middle of all of these like this. Peel that tape off as well, and then at each end, so I wouldn't move your loom too soon. You take the pair that are sat next to each other and you tie it in a knot. So round one over the other. So this will just keep your threads in. I'm just going to get this side done and then I'll move it so you can see a bit better. So one goes over the other. If you find this really tricky, you can send it back on the loom if you think this is going to be too tricky to do. Okay, so that's one side completely tied. So, if you can see a bit better. Oh, he's falling out a little bit, that's okay. Just rearrange it. So you take two, like this. One goes over the other, and tail through the loop. Just don't pull it too tight that you scrunch it all. Just pull it tight enough that you can tie a knot, kind of like a shoelace knot. So you go in, one over the other. What is that knot called? I don't know. And then again. If you want to, you can leave these bits sticking out, but you can also just kind of grab any extra bits that are kind of those ends that you left earlier, and then just weave them in and hide them in the colours that you had. So one side can be the back and one side can be the front. This is my front. So you can just kind of fold the bits around the sides and hide them in the weave. And what you might want to do is just trim your tassels, if you've done tassels, to the same size. All finished. I've left some of these sticking out. I quite like the way that they look, but that's it. Have a little play around with it. You can do loads of different effects. I've got this little one here that I did with this lovely wax print fabric, and it's got tassels at the bottom and in the middle. Also got this giant one that I did again with a cardboard loom, just on a bigger scale. Just going to end by showing you how to make a cardboard loom if you want to make a bit of weaving that's bigger than the loom we've sent you. So the first thing we need to do is get our loom ready for our warp threads. So the warp threads are the threads that run down, the weft threads are the ones that run across, and all fabric is woven like this, fabric like this, fabric in our clothes. This is the basics of it. So what we want to do is create little cuts in our cardboard. So we're going to mark equal spaces along it. You could do 1 centimetre or 1.5 centimetre along it. So starting from one of the edges here, I'm going to do done these ones. Don't worry about the end if it's a bit longer. We'll just do our last one here. The size of this loom doesn't really, this isn't going to be part of your final piece, so don't worry what this looks like. One thing that you do have to make sure is that you start from the same side here, so making sure that you've got the same distance here that you do here. So we don't want to start there and end up with a wonky loom. And you're marking about 1 centimetre down into the cardboard. If you make a mistake, don't worry. As I said, this isn't part of your final design, so it's not. Doesn't matter how neatly you do it or not. So what we're going to do now is cut little, just up into your, as I said, about 1 centimetre up the cardboard. And the same on the other side.